Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths. More specifically, a quick guide on using Breadboard to get a nice, or at least adequate, spin block walker. As in, a walker which has legs, which are made primarily of spin blocks, and that's how the legs move. So, I've made ACB walkers using spin block legs before. I made one ages ago in my ill-fated Ashes of the Empire playthrough, walkers only. That was a beautiful disaster of a campaign playthrough in many ways. I highly recommend you go watch at least the first episode, because it's really obvious I wasn't ready for the task. Also, our walkers breakdancing, that's hilarious. But now I have finally figured out how to use Breadboard to get a walker going. I'm not sure if this is the a standard walker breadboard setup that the From the Depths hive mind, aka the community, uses, but it works for me, so we're gonna go through it. So, to start off with, let's inspect this bread. So, helpfully here, and this is mostly to remind myself, we got basically two categories here. We've got the top line of shenanigans is for the right leg, and the bottom is for the left leg, and then this column here is for the hips, the spin blocks which act as hips, another one for the spin blocks which act as knees, and then a third one for the ones that act like ankles. And if this looks complicated, it actually isn't. It's just the same little sequence repeated 6 times. It's just controlling different spin blocks, and there's slightly different values in them. So, to start off with, once I turn the UI back on, you will notice that this spin block over here is named right hip. So you name blocks using Shift-N, or you can use a UI thing, like here. So I have it selected on 2, you can find it right here, block naming. You just click on a thing and you can name it right there. This is very, very useful for both using ACBs and Breadboard. And so, right here we have the right hip, we have the right knee, and we have the right ankle down there. I'm just going to show you that. Here it is. Here is the right ankle. It is very correct. And we appear to be stuck. Can you please? Alright, it's the pitch control is a little bit wonky. We'll get to that in a second. This is a prototype. So, what we have here, just focusing on the right hip, over here we have our generic block setter, and the block name filter is set to right hip, and it's set to control a spin block, and to change the angle. So the variable is the number, the angle of the spin block. Over here, we have our propulsion input, which is set to forwards, and when that gets above 0.5 value, remember, full tilt forward is 1, and not moving at all is 0. That trips the switch with a threshold of 0.5 and sends an open value well, basically that's the values from over here through. The open value is 10, so what that means is that when this has not been tripped, the hips are at an angle of 10 degrees. So that's the default angle, very handy. So we're already saving a lot of blocks here, because this would have already taken, like, I don't know, at least 3 ACBs to do. So yeah, and then over here, once this opens, the filter here is another switch, so we've got a 1-second timer here, which constantly opens and closes the switch, constantly letting through, alternating a value of 45 and negative 45. So it means that when, on the right hip, when this thing is going... Bruh, what are you doing? Are you stuck? What are you doing? Move! There we go. Jeez, legs are wonky in From the Depths, and there's no way around it. So you see, every second, this particular spin block is rotating between 45 and negative 45 degrees. And that works okay with this walker. You'll notice this thing is bouncing around a lot. It's quite clumsy. There's no way around it with walkers, and I guess breadboard walkers especially. You are going to have to fiddle around with it a lot to get it to do exactly what you want it to. It's not like a ship, like, depending on the size of your walker, how heavy it is, how long the legs are, how many joints you actually have in it, this changes and all the numbers change. So it's fiddly. And that's the hips, and the left hip is exactly the same, except these two values are swapped. So when the right hip is set to an angle of 45, the left hip is set to an angle of negative 45, and vice versa. So you can see there the left hip is doing the alternating swing of the leg. And that's basically it. That is the basic premise, and it's just copied again for the knees and again for the ankles. The only real difference is that the values are slightly different. So the knees alternate between 0 and negative 45, and negative 45 and 0, respectively. So you can see they bend as they lift off the ground, and then they straighten and push against the ground like so. And the ankles, which probably also need work, do something very similar. They alternate between 0 and 45. Honestly, I should tweak the ankles on this a little more, because you do want to keep the clampy feet. By the way, this is using clampy feet. You do want to keep that parallel to the ground, because you don't want, well, what this thing is doing right now, which is constantly pushing off the ground and going airborne. That's bad. And if the clampy feet aren't, you know, at a proper angle to the ground, it tends to pitch forward, which is why this thing has pitch control. So, also, I should mention that if you want to be clever, it's a good idea to set this to forward. The forward clamp, set that to respond to forward movement, like so. I keep forgetting to set this on this particular walker, and I keep forgetting to save it, because that does help a little bit, to help it go forward a little bit better. See, it's still bouncing up and down, and you might still need a little bit of pitch control at the very least. You'll notice that the legs are quite wide. It is better not to have your walkers be too narrow, which is a problem for me because, as a lot of people would probably tell you, I have a crippling canoe addiction, and no doctor can help me. So yeah, that's the basics of this little breadboard walker. Now, I want to show off a slightly more functional variant of it, which is quadrupedal. So here we have our friend here, which is this is probably the nicest looking legs I've ever made on any walker. This uses pretty much the same breadboard setup. So this is, again, this is more prototype than anything else. I'm not going to take this into a campaign anytime soon. Where's the bread? So the only difference here is that instead of right leg, left leg, I should really change the notes of this, because it's really, it should be leg 1 and leg 2. Reason for that is that this doesn't, because I forget what the gait is called. It's like, basically what you want with a quadruped is you don't want both legs on either side lifting up at the same time, usually, unless you want to deliberately make it walk like a camel. If you want to make it walk more like a dog or a horse or something like that, you have an alternating gait. I just remember, is that what it's called? I never remember. Anyway, so basically you want the front right leg to be doing roughly the same thing as the rear left leg. And so what that looks like is something like this. Can you move, please? Great. No, lovely. Move, you bastard. Come on. Oh my goodness, it's stuck in the bloody ground. Move, you piece of crap. There we go. Walkers are buggy, and if you want to have an easy life, I don't suggest building them at all. So this is mostly for fun and giggles. So anyway, here we have our walker, and I've had to tweak this thing a lot, and it still occasionally pitches up and down in weird ways because it's bouncing off the ground. But it's rolling along, and the average speed, well, the top speed is around 31 meters per second. If you look there, it sometimes goes faster than that, but the speed varies quite a bit. So yeah, here it's basic. This is an example of what it looks like. I do like how the legs on this look, though. It looks very sci-fi. It looks like a Star Wars. And it's got a little plasma gun on top. It's nothing amazing. It's just a little destabilized plasma. So it goes pew pew pew. So, what can we shoot at here? Shooting at an Atlas is great fun with this thing. Like so. And it walks around, it goes pew pew pew. And it's very nice. And it's just canoe enough that I'm on brand for this. So this is an example of the kind of fun things you can make. Can't take this into Ashes, unfortunately. And a little reminder for this walker, and I guess any kind of walker, is that, wow, we already brought that guy down. A little reminder is that you are going to have to swap up the values, like the angles of the legs, possibly the timer on that breadboard. Simply because, depending on what you're building, your walker's probably got different balance, it's got different leg length and stuff like that. So, yeah, that is very much a thing. I should probably also tweak the switches so that instead of the threshold being 0.5, it's 0.1. Yeah, because if you don't do that, like, you can see that our friend here just stops. It also still is not doing the angle I want it to. Why are you buggering off over there, you... Oh, that's because of that. It's because of that. My bad. Yeah, there you go. Now you're turning. One of the great things about walkers is that they're actually very maneuverable. And if the enemy is stupid enough to aim for the cluster of blocks on the feet, it just means that they miss a lot because they're constantly moving. This is a lovely screenshot. I like this. Pew pew. Look at me walk. Look, Mom, I'm walking. So anyway, that's basically this simple spin block breadboard, walker breadboard in a nutshell. You can also do piston walkers, and I'm going to save that for another video because I haven't gotten around to building one of those. And walkers being walkers, that is going to require a bit of fiddling. So yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon, YouTube membership if you like. It really helps, and there's fun perks in it for you. Thank you to all my current supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths. Farewell.